the chapel.
Are we ready to go?
Ready to start? Okay.
Well, you introducing it? Go ahead. So I have to sort of make sure I'm in the frame. Anyway, we're happy to have Scott Asper here. Scott's the executive director of Colorado Episcopal Foundation, and he's going to talk to us about all of the ins and outs of planned giving. So thank you. I'm just going to leave it up to you.
All right, very good. I have a handout here with the different types of gifts that we're going to be going over. Would anyone like a copy?
Yeah, let me just hand them out.
Okay. All right, well, I want to thank you all for having me down here. We were supposed to do this 2 weeks ago, I think, and somehow I got my wires crossed and actually had it on my calendar for today, oddly enough, so I apologize for that. But yes, we're going to talk about legacy giving, plan giving. We'll use the two interchangeably, really the same thing. And ways to leave gifts to the church, different options. And a few things. First of all, please ask questions as we go. And if you've done any of this, please, if you have anything to share that you think would be helpful, that would be great. And one thing I want to point out, a couple of things. These gifts that we're talking about are all long-term. Most of them happen when you pass away. So you're very generous in your giving to the church now. This is another way to think about including the church in your plans as part of your long-term planning. And this doesn't have to be complicated. Some of these you're already doing anyway, as far as you've named people who are beneficiaries of a retirement account, insurance proceeds, something like that. So it doesn't have to be hard or complicated. And it's not just for the wealthy. You don't have to have $50 million in the bank. If you do, let me know. I'd like to go talk to you. But this isn't about money. It's about intention. You're celebrating 50 years of Good Shepherd. We want to help ensure that you'll be celebrating the 100th year of Good Shepherd and the 150th year of Good Shepherd. So this is about keeping things vibrant here in your community and all of the great outreach programs that you do in helping around here and out beyond this area. So why don't we go ahead and get started. So there are several different types of planned gifts out there that help with your long-term planning. One of the most common ones and a cornerstone of all legacy giving or plan giving programs is a bequest in your will. And so first of all, we've heard stats about how few people have wills. Heard 50%, 25%, but a very, very low percentage. And everybody needs a will, no matter your age. So one way that you can give a gift, and oftentimes you'll have bequests to nonprofit entities. So think about Good Shepherd as a bequest in your will. And most times you don't have to redraft your entire will. You can do an amendment, what's called a codicil to your will. But it's also a good time just to review your will so that you know all the specifics that are in there. So very good review. So this again can be very simple and very effective for your long-term planning. Excuse me. The next item that we have is an IRA. Yes.
Could you say something about the difference between a restricted bequest and a general bequest?
Yes. So a restricted request would be that you designate it for a certain use, a certain outreach program, maybe something here at the church, as far as long-term care that you needed, as far as your good old HVAC system and all that fun stuff, upkeep and maintenance. So that would be restricted for a certain purpose and designated for something that's going on now. And typically, when you do that, you'll have some wording in there that, okay, if this specific purpose isn't around, say for 3 years in a row or 5 years in a row, a certain period of time, that then the money shall go to this or that. So that would be a restricted bequest. And then unrestricted request would basically be a gift to the long-term savings or to your endowment. And then would be used based on your endowment policy and maybe an endowment committee that's running that. So yes, and a lot of people will leave a percentage, say, of your estate. Certainly leave specific items or a specific amount, but it's a good idea to leave a percentage. So yes, good question. So our next item that we have are IRA beneficiary designations. And when we talk about the beneficiaries, we're not talking about contingent beneficiaries. We're talking about primary beneficiaries. And a lot of people don't know that, excuse me, you can have more than one primary beneficiary designation on your plan. Most plans allow for that. So whether it's a 401k, an IRA, 403b, like when you're in the nonprofit world, you can name loved ones as a 90% beneficiary, and then the church as a 10% beneficiary. So it's not an all or nothing thing, and that can be changed over the years as well. And typically in today's world, fairly easy to do. Go ahead and call Fidelity or Vanguard, let them know that you would like to adjust your beneficiaries, and most likely they'll email you a form or tell you on the website where to go to pull that down. And again, another way for you to review, okay, and have on hand, who are my beneficiaries, make sure I understand that. I'm pretty sure it's this and that, but now I've got it specifically once you make a change. But regardless, just as part of that long-term planning, now you've got that on file. So that's a very effective, and again, a gift that's going to be made out in the long term when you pass away. So that's very easy and very effective as well. The next item we have is the IRA qualified distribution, charitable distribution. Once you hit 70 and a half, you're required to take required minimum distributions. And one thing that you can do, and when you take that, what's that?
73 required.
Changes for different age people.
73.
Is it 73?
For
Okay.
me, it's 73.
Okay.
I'm special.
Okay, all right. You've got a little time.
70 and a half, though, I can start distributing
When you have to,
with
when you have to.
regularly.
Right.
to
No,
a charitable
but gotcha.
organization. Yeah.
Gotcha. So when you do that, typically when you make a withdrawal from your IRA or your retirement plan, it's taxable income. Well, what you can do is you can make a withdrawal from your IRA or 401k and have it go straight to a nonprofit, directly to the church. That will then count towards your required minimum distribution, and it won't be taxed. So it's really a win-win. And just to make sure that I'm explaining it right, it's directly to the organization. So don't make a withdrawal yourself and then say, okay, now I'm going to write a check to the church. You want to make sure it's direct to Good Shepherd. So again, a call to your IRA provider or search on their website. They'll give you the forms that you need to do in order to make this type of a distribution. The next thing we're going to talk about will be, again, just like an IRA beneficiary designation, we have then a life insurance beneficiary designation. Again, a primary designation, not a contingent beneficiary. So similar to an IRA beneficiary designation, oftentimes for life insurance, now there are a ton of life insurance policies, so this isn't going to apply across the board, but oftentimes in life insurance policies, you can have multiple primary designations. So again, 90% to your loved ones, 10% to Good Shepherd. So again, very nice, very effective, and a way to help with, again, the long-term planning, a way to be intentional in what it is that you're doing. A way that I could tell from the outside, okay, what's important to you? What's been important to you in your life? Well, let me take a look at your will, and when I read that, oh, there's a bequest to Good Shepherd. That must be an important part of their life over many, many years. So again, very effective and typically pretty easy to do. Another thing then would be a donation to the endowment, to your long-term savings here, of certain property that you have. Let's say one thing that we do at the foundation are stock gifts. So, and typically when you sell stock that you've held over 1 year, you'll have capital gains taxes that are due. So for stock gifts, your stock needs to be held for at least a year. And then when you donate it in kind or donate shares, you avoid the capital gains tax on doing that. And so you could make a donation of that appreciated stock today to the church for the endowment to be used for the endowment policy. So, and doing, you can do any other type of appreciated property or many other types of appreciated property. At Good Shepherd, you just want to be careful, and if someone's going to give you, say, a rare coin collection, we or you here at the church don't establish value. That's something the donor needs to do. So, and that's part of then just a gift acceptance policy or something of that nature. So, real estate, another, item that people will donate. Yes?
When you talk about long-term gains on appreciated stock,
Yes.
can that be any appreciated stock? Does it have to be long-term?
It needs to be long-term, so it needs to be held over 1 year.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, so real estate, another area that maybe you'll have out there, maybe you have some undeveloped property that you'd like to make a donation and like to transfer ownership. Again, typically some favorable tax consequences because you're not selling it outright. And as the church, of course, like I said, you don't have to take something if you don't want to, but a lot of these types of gifts are going to be very marketable in a nice area. So that's another area. Another type of legacy gift is what's called a life estate. Basically, where you'll enter into an agreement where upon your passing, your church will receive your house. Your house will be donated to the church, but you retain the right to live in it for the rest of your life. And so again, a very effective way to help in your estate planning in what's going to happen when you do pass away. And something that's typically a pretty straightforward contract in how you achieve this and what needs to be documented. And in all of these gifts that we make, you'll want to make sure have the legal name of the church and where Good Shepherd is located in Centennial, Colorado. We don't have a ton of Good Shepherds in the diocese here that I know about, but we do have like a lot of St. John's, a lot. And I'm sure there are lots of Good Shepherds out there in other denominations as well. So you'll want to make sure and get the proper legal name. A lot of people will use a street address too. Now maybe the church isn't here anymore, but in tracking the history of the church, you'll see that, oh, they used to be located here. Yes,
If we can go back to the life estate
yes,
gift, there are a couple important details about that. It's a very good way for people who have appreciated, whose home's value has appreciated greatly, who don't have a child they want to leave it to, or some other person they want to leave the home to, where they can continue to live in the home. The person who makes such a gift continues to pay taxes and
insurance, upkeep, correct.
That's not
Yep.
the responsibility, would not be the responsibility of the church, but the responsibility of the person who's living there. The other big advantage is there's usually a sizable tax deduction attached to such a gift.
Yeah,
And so I've seen instances where someone has been able to donate a house as a life estate, and as a result has paid basically no federal income taxes for the next 5 years because it gets covered by this deduction.
Right.
So there's a real advantage to this for people who aren't looking to pass on their houses to somebody.
right. And in our area in Colorado, we know how high the prices in real estate have gone in the last 5, 10, 15 years. So you'll have a lot of you, or a lot of congregation members are sitting on very sizable possible taxable gains there. So yes, just as you say, there can be substantial tax savings for many years when you make the designation up front now too. So you'll get that tax break, tax deduction now, not when you pass away. So yes, very effective. Our next item on here is a charitable lead trust. And we're going to talk about a charitable remainder trust in just a minute. But this is where you'll set up a trust. The church will receive fixed income either for your lifetime or for a certain term of years, like maybe for the next 20 years. And then, so if you set up a lead trust, once you pass away, then funds will go to your beneficiaries that you name. So a very good estate planning tool as a way to distribute the assets in your estate upon your death. So church receives money now, and then that property will be passed out to who you designate on that lead trust for your beneficiary. So we've had a couple of these at the foundation. We don't act as trustees anymore, but there are tons of people out there, of course, tons of entities that are very, very good trustees here in the Denver metro area. Again, fairly, well, there are lots of different terms that you can put in a trust. So these, and the lead trust or remainder trust are going to be a separate entity that you set up. They have a tax ID number, all that kind of fun stuff. So typically we'll see attorneys or estate planners help individuals setting these up. And they get to fill out tax returns as well for the trust. So isn't that fun? So all of these options are primarily upon your death, and they don't provide a stream of income for the donor, for someone who is setting them up. They do provide very favorable tax consequences in most cases. So I guess in that regard, it does provide some income, and that you don't have to cut a check to the IRS. So, but the next items we're going to talk about are, excuse me, some gifts that do provide income to donors, and is an area where you would make a contribution into one of these plans and receive income as well. So the first one we'll talk about, charitable gift annuities. So a charitable gift annuity basically works, you will fund an annuity, say write a check for $10,000, or or you can donate, again, appreciated property, appreciated stock to fund your gift annuity. We see that quite a bit. And at the foundation, we underwrite gift annuities. So you'll fund the gift annuity, and then for your lifetime, you will receive a fixed payment every month, or you can do it quarterly or semi-annually or annually. But you will receive a fixed payment for the rest of your life. And then once you pass away, what's left in your account will then go to the church. And in this, again, you can name different nonprofit entities as well to split. Some of our gift annuities will have 75% going to the church, maybe 25% going to the St. Francis Center, or maybe Cathedral Ridge. So you can split those, and you can change that over time if you would like. You can change the beneficiary. Now, for charitable gift annuities that we underwrite, we're the Colorado Episcopal Foundation, so they have to be the majority, at least 50% has to be left to an Episcopal entity in the state. But we do also allow donors to leave some other part of what's left in their account to nonprofits. But at least 50 has to go, for our charitable gift annuity program, at least 50% has to go to an Episcopal entity in the state. And when you enter into one of these, we'll tell you, or wherever you go to do a charitable gift annuity, not only will they say, okay, here's the amount you're gonna get every year, which is based on your age. The younger you are, you'll get less because you're gonna live for a long time. The IRS thinks you're gonna die in a certain amount of time. If you're 90, then you'll be receiving a larger amount. So the day you sign up for one of these, you'll get a form. I'll tell you exactly when you receive that money, okay, how do you include that on your tax return? And so I'll give you something, or whoever underwrites a gift annuity for you, excuse me, they'll tell you right up front, will it be ordinary income? If you're using appreciated stock, some of it will be ordinary income, some of it will be a long-term capital gain, and some of it will be non-taxable because it's considered early on up front kind of a return on your investment, or your return on what you've put into the gift annuity. But you'll receive that right up front the day that you open the gift annuity, so you can see what taxable consequences and all of that sort of thing and how to handle those payments that you receive. And then you'd receive a 1099-R, is what it is, which will we would send out and prepare so that then you know specifically on there where you need to put your payout and have, of course, for your records, for your tax files. So a very nice way to do a couple of things. You'll hear these referred to as split interest gifts a lot of times because you're receiving some interest in terms of annual payouts or monthly payouts, a fixed amount, and then the church will receive what's left in the contract when you pass away. And if it happens that maybe you live to be 110 years old, well, God bless you. Maybe the well will run dry and that the account has gone to zero. Well, you'll still receive your monthly payout or annual payout. When an entity underwrites this, they're in it for the entire lifetime, whether the money runs out or not. So when you do enter into these, you want to make sure that you enter into these with someone who has a very solid financial position. If someone has $5 million, say in their reserves, and you are looking for a $2 million gift annuity, that's not a very good idea. But if you're looking for, say, a $10,000 gift annuity and someone has $10 million sitting in their endowment, okay, you have pretty good coverage there. You can look at financial statements and see, yeah, they're very solid here in their financial position. So that occasionally will happen, or the stock market crashes, something like that. But we've had quite a few annuities over the years at the foundation. So far, knock on wood, we haven't had any of them go empty, go dry. They've worked out quite effectively and very nicely. And again, they're designed to be, the payout amounts are designed for there to be roughly 50% in the original amount. So
the payout is based on the annuitant's
payout
age.
is based on your age. At the foundation, you have to be 50 years or older to open up a gift annuity. And this is a good way to supplement income in your retirement. You'll be receiving some income from a pension plan that you have, or an IRA or 401k. At some point, you'll start to get Social Security, and you can also have fixed payout from your gift annuity. So it's a way to have a nice different stream of income for when you pass away, not just today, which is also nice, of course. And then our last item in a gift that will provide income is a charitable remainder trust. A charitable remainder trust works very similar to a charitable gift annuity, as far as you'll receive a payout every year. Typically, remainder trusts have annual payouts, but you can do quarterly or semi payouts as well. To you, you'll receive that, and then when you pass away, what's left in the trust will go to the church. And again, you can have multiple designations as to where the funds will go when you pass away. When you do a remainder trust, this of course now we're talking the Episcopal Church, we're talking Good Shepherd. So typically all of it would go to Good Shepherd. But it could be, when we used to do charitable remainder trusts, we would allow our person who sets up the trust to have other nonprofits receive some of the money that's left, but at least 50% would have to be given to an Episcopal entity in the state. Now we don't, and with charitable remainder trusts, one advantage they have over gift annuities is there are different ways that payouts can be calculated. Some of them can be an income trust. Some of them, a typical charitable remainder trust would be a trust that pays out a percentage of assets. But there are several different payout structures that you can set up in a charitable remainder trust. Again, this will be a separate entity. You need to set up the trust. It will have a tax ID number, prepare an annual tax statement, that kind of thing. So that would be an area where certainly you'd want to have maybe an attorney or someone knowledgeable in this area establish the trust for you. But a very effective way, again, to receive income now, and then when you pass away, money will be given then to Good Shepherd.
Scott, do you have a list, if the time comes for someone that they want to establish a charitable remainder trust, do you have a list of attorneys, trust and estate attorneys, or so on who work with Episcopalians to do this?
We do not, because when you have a list, we decided not to do this because when you have a list that you put out there, you really need to vet that list every other year or so. In other words, make sure that Scott Asper is still in the business and that Scott Asper hasn't lost his license because he stole money from someone or something like that. So typically what we would say is maybe go to the state, like to the Bar Association. They'll typically have an area where they will break out what attorneys will specialize in different areas. typically an attorney would be then willing to certainly sit down with you initially upfront and talk about this without paying a fee so that everybody knows what's going on and what you can expect. But the foundation can help you determine what the payout would look like, the different types of charitable remainder trusts that you can set up. We have plan giving software that we can enter in everything, your age, how much you want to fund the trust with, all of that. And so we can give you some spreadsheets and flow charts that show you how these will work. And we also have an annual membership. PG Calc, Plan Giving Calculations, and Crescendo are two entities that you can have relationships with or annual payments with, so that you can talk to people, attorneys, fiduciaries, that sort of thing, and get information from them as well, so that we could give you some more specific information based on, again, your age, type of trust, that sort of thing. Or if you're in a kind of a different situation, you do have a more complex estate, we can work with this entity to get some information for you as well, so that when you are meeting with, say, an estate planning attorney or something like that, you can already walk in there with some information, knowing how some of the basics work. So although we don't offer a couple of these, we can certainly help you with how they'll work, some flow charts and things like that, and even some model documents. Now again, the specific document will be specific to each individual, but we can give you some examples of the contracts and what have you. And again, how the payouts would be taxed as well when you receive them. So those are the primary plan gifts that are out there. And one thing I wanted to touch on too, and I forgot to, I apologize, when we were talking about charitable gift annuities, there is an entity out there, the American Council of Gift Annuities, that sets suggested payout rates. Almost everybody out there will use those percentages to pay out. So say 5% a year based on your age is what you'll receive. This entity employs, investment advisors, attorneys, actuaries, all of that sort of stuff. And they've been doing this for a long term, and they have the studies out there to determine, okay, this percentage for someone who is this age, this is the best percentage to use, so that there will be 50%, an estimated 50% number left.
So in other words, if the 110-year-old person you mentioned earlier has one more year to go, what would that percentage be?
The same. It's a fixed percentage. Fixed percentage. Yep.
But it's kind of a lead into an additional question. And by the way, years ago, you and I talked a couple of times on case Korsmed.
Oh yeah.
Right now, we have about, I forgot the exact amount, but over $100,000 in the fund. And can you clue the audience here a little bit in on how well the fund has performed compared with inflation over the last, say, 5 years or so?
Yeah, I mean, so far, the funds have done quite well and outperformed inflation by a couple of percent every year. Now, of course, that depends on the two big things, inflation and the market returns. But the investments, and when you establish the percentages, or you follow percentages that the American Council on Gift Annuities puts out there, they have, when they come up with their rates, say 5%, they have an underlying asset allocation of investments, like so much in stocks, so much in bonds, maybe a small amount in cash, that will help achieve that rate of return that will lead to an estimated 50%, and also that should outpace the rate of inflation, usually around a couple of percent. So, but there's no.
Just the real question is coming now. I bet you that in this audience here, that a couple percent net gain per year is not particularly attractive. And I know that the diocese obviously has a very conservative approach to investments. But is there a way, especially when the funds are building up so that the principal has not reached a designated amount, at which point it becomes available for at least a portion of it, like say the 5% or the 4% that would be available for applications? Is there any way to bifurcate that amount of fund so that some of it can be invested with more risk, but also meaning that you can get a heck of a lot more than 2 or 3% net gain per year? Is that happening, or?
No, that's not happening, because you could receive a lot more than that, but you could also receive a lot less than that. The market could drop 30%.
I know, but
So-
that's why a percentage approach, would that be something that is possible to think about and implement?
I mean, there's a couple of different types of gift annuities out there. The gift annuities that we underwrite, and most.
You're talking about everything, you're talking about the endowment.
The endowment.
Oh,
Send that into the
I'm sorry,
process.
I thought we were talking about annuities
No,
now.
you
Okay.
don't.
Okay, endowment, okay.
To give you kind of a rough number,
Okay,
you
okay.
probably have the better number, but let's say there is about $140,000 in that endowment right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, we have been looking at the legal language quite a bit over the past 10 years or so. So it has not been changed, as far as I know, to a higher amount to be having to be the endowment before the proceeds become available. But trying to think ahead here to make it more attractive for people that are going to thinking, okay, I'm going to give some money actually before I die, but having 2% net per year does not look particularly attractive because my own record is here, much higher.
Well, we've now shifted to your endowment. So typically, when you're looking at payouts from endowments, most of the time you'll see people go back 3 or 4 years and do a quarterly weighted average of the endowment amount. But you typically want to stick with it. 4 or 5% is what the typical payout percentage is that you see a lot. And it'll be based on that rolling average of the last, say, 3 years, which would be 12 quarters. So as the market is going up, that 5% payout will be more in the funds received. But so we've had a very good market in the last 10 years. But you have to be very careful if you're saying, okay, return's been good, let's do 7% instead of 5%. It's kind of a way of you're timing the market because the market has been good. Well, when do you go back to 4 or 5%? When is the market, quote, bad? That's a tough thing when you're wanting to increase something is, okay, when do you decrease it? And how do you not?
So as a follow-up to that question, because the whole endeavor here is to get more money into the endowment. So the next question is, okay, what do you get? How are you going to manage it? What kind of instruments do you buy? Are they all in bonds or?
For the funds that, we offer 3 investment funds at the foundation. We have a short-term income fund that would be something that is more liquid and you typically wouldn't put it into an endowment. And then we have a bond fund, intermediate term bond fund, that's invested in 3 mutual funds. So you have some good diversity within the mutual funds. And then we have a stock fund, which has 60% in large cap stocks, 20 US large
And it's
cap
indexed,
stocks.
I assume you're buying indices.
Most of that,
In
in that
stocks.
60% slice, 55% is in the Vanguard Institutional Index,
Right.
which is an S&P 500 index, and one of the best because it's one of the lower cost ones, or one of the lowest cost ones. And then we have a small piece in that large cap area that's actively managed. But all the studies out there show that as far as large cap mutual funds go, only 10% or so outperform the S&P 500 over the long term. So really, and anchoring the whole portfolio in more than half an indexed fund really is a nice way to keep it on a smooth track with how the markets are doing. So you have broad exposure to the market itself. Yes?
Do you have a hard number return for 10 years?
Hard number return for 10 years is
Percentage.
about, it's around, we just got 9 to 10% annually, I believe. So we have,
That's
so
better
yes,
than inflation plus 2, though.
yes,
It's a lot better.
yeah. And yeah, so we have 60% in domestic large cap, then we have 20% of the fund in domestic small and mid cap. And again, in that 20% slice, half of that is in a Vanguard index fund. And then another piece of that, 5% is in an actively managed small cap fund, and then 5% is in an actively managed mid cap fund.
Is the
But it's,
Vanguard, is that the VOO?
excuse me?
Is it the VOO?
VOO?
Yeah, that's the Vanguard 500 fund.
I think so. I'm not sure I'm understanding the question.
Specific fund, the symbol for it is what it's asking.
The Vanguard Institutional Index. That is, first of all, all these numbers and the makeup of the portfolio and what the holdings are, they're available on our website. And the church here receives them every quarter. So the Vanguard is VINIX, that's the institutional index, which is basically an S&P 500 index. I say basically because Vanguard used to use S&P indexes, but they don't anymore. They use Russell indexes. S&P actually charges you to use their indexes. So that's the large cap one. And part of an advantage that we offer at the foundation, if the church invests with us, that particular fund has a $5 million minimum investment. So not a lot of churches have $5 million that they can put into one account, but we do due to our scalability since they're pooled funds. And those $5 million buy-in institutional funds have extremely small expenses.
Now, does the church issue like monthly, quarterly, or annual statements so that could be distributed to parishioners in a given church?
That is, we have quarterly statements that we send
The
out.
one page?
No, they're 4 pages now. It'll be 1 page summary and a market outlook that we have a financial advisor prepare for us. And then the next page will show returns of each slice of the portfolio and then the individual funds of the portfolio. And then there'll be a final page that has the total assets in there, like our equity fund is maybe 24-ish million, and then show you how much of each of those funds.
So going back to my original question,
Uh-huh,
if you look over 10 years performance,
uh-huh.
how much did the church make on the investment?
Like an average of 10% right now,
10%?
annually,
Okay.
yeah.
No,
Yep.
That's pretty decent.
So just going back to Case's original question, which is there a way to increase the gap between inflation and return so that it's larger? Can we invest a little more aggressively? The thing I think to point out here is There are institutions which invest more aggressively, but there are institutions that tend to have very large endowments and a very big cushion,
Right.
who are looking at say a 30-year investment horizon. And I don't think Good Shepherd's in a position to look at a 30-year investment horizon. We're looking at maybe a 5-year investment horizon. And so it's appropriate to think about the preservation of our endowment as well as the income. And so investing more conservatively in a situation like ours is more appropriate. If we had a substantially larger endowment, which I hope we have at some point in the not too distant future, then it might be time to look at, are there ways to invest a little more aggressively than we do? But at present, we don't have a very large endowment.
Right. And yeah, when we're considering then too, not just nonprofit, now we're in the church nonprofit world, that tends to lead to kind of a different type of investment outlook as well, as opposed to say a college, especially a college like let's say Yale, who has like an $8 billion endowment, or however big it is now. Yale and Harvard, Stanford are up there in the top 5 usually in the billions of dollars in their endowment. And then just as you say, 30, 50-year outlook for their endowment, and so much money that they can really get into different type of asset classes as well. As far as we'll invest in some real estate, they own maybe a couple of the skyscrapers downtown. So with that kind of number, you can get into some other areas with some different risk profiles. But when you're in the smaller area, in a church, typically you want to keep it more in the broad marketable securities, more like stocks and bonds. So, but you can, as a church, if you have 60% in the equity fund, say, and 40% in a bond fund, you can change those allocations over the years if you want to. You can, as you grow and get the endowment a little bigger, if you want to maybe increase a little bit more into the equity fund to get a little bit more return over the long term again. You can certainly do that.
Well, so the good news is that the 10% returns, if it stays around 10%, the 140,000, or what the actual number right now is, in about 20 years is going to be worth something.
Oh yeah, if you're disciplined and you keep a good amount of your allocation fairly static over the long term, you will make a pretty good return. I mean, history has shown that in the stock market. In the short term, of course, we've had some pretty rough downturns, but if you look at the line of the return of the stock market and the broader market here, it goes up over long term. You have a few lines down here and then you'll go up here. You know, that average of 10% is out there. Sometimes you're a little under 10%. Sometimes you're a little over 10%. We have a trustee who lives in Michigan, and one of the sayings they have out there is, sometimes the bear gets you, sometimes you get the bear. So you'll see over and under that 10%, but over the long term, you will make a very good sum of money and outpace inflation by a few percentage points. That's what history has shown going back the last 100 years.
Well, with anticipation, waiting till I see some numbers to see if the actual net returns have been more than a few percent a year. Would be good.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you know, we need to have a lot more people die, I think, before.
Yeah. Yes, you do. you need to run buses by the car, so you have the proverbial step out and hit my bus.
We have been praying in the past for unusual requests, but that issue did come up, so.
Well, we currently have 179,000 in
That's
the
excellent.
account.
Great.
And we're hoping to get that up to 250 in a year and a half. And then we're 3 years beyond that, we're looking, our goal was to put a 500 and then ultimately another 3 years trying to get it to 1 million. We're talking a lot about people investing in our endowment while they're still alive versus waiting until they're dead. And so
That's where it's at, Jim.
that's worth it. Right.
Yeah.
And
I mean, we'll talk more about that in the future.
Give it to the church so your kids don't get it, basically.
I didn't hear you. Kurt.
So give it to the church so your kids don't get it.
Yes.
How about giving
Or
it
get
to
so
the
much.
church?
Okay,
Generous.
well, that's down the road, but for us, the R&D has been a really good way to avoid taxes on those
Yeah.
distributions.
it's very effective. And it used to be that the IRS would have to approve it year after year after year, so you didn't know if it was gonna be around next year. Now it's been made permanent. So, but it's, yeah, it's very nice, it's very effective.
Scott, a clarification for me. I mean, does Good Shepherd really, you have, last I heard, you had $33 million that you were managing in investments. Do you manage that as a total amount, or do you actually, you don't really set it up, so each church you're looking at, okay, I mean, you'd have 30 different places you'd have to put that. Do you manage the money as a whole, or do you manage it individually?
We manage it as a whole, it's a pooled fund. So, and then our trust company does all of the record keeping for us to then allocate out the amount of income and the market appreciation to everybody. So everyone who's in the equity fund will receive 10%.
They're getting the same yield, that's what I'm asking, yes.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, percentage wise.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Got it.
And everybody, yeah, everyone, and I double check it, or the foundation double checks it every quarter. Okay, did everybody get 10%? Pretty simple calculation, but we test it too, just to make sure. I mean, I gotta make sure that it's right. So, yes, it's managed as a pooled amount, so that 35 million-ish. Yeah, when someone's in the equity fund, they're in the exact same allocation of mutual funds and will have the exact same return as every other church.
I think just so everybody understands, when we talk about the foundation, we're talking about Scott and his assistant, and sometimes a part-time person. This isn't exactly a huge staff.
And we, and by the way, as your goal of getting to 500,000 in your endowment, as far as all our clients, and we handle roughly 65% of the churches out there have investments with us. 500,000 will put you up there pretty well as far as all the churches out there. So that's a pretty good number. And if you're pulling, say, 5% out of that, that'll be $25,000 a year, and that's a pretty good number to help out with some outreach programs. A lot of outreach programs are, of course, sweat equity and people helping out with them, but then some of them you need cash as well. I mean, that's just how it is. So
Do
25,000.
you handle the cathedral? You do, don't you?
We don't handle the cathedral's main endowment.
Oh, you don't?
No, the cathedral, they have enough people in the seats. And I don't know if the cathedral works with an investment manager or consultant or not, but they handle their own endowment. They have their own investment committee. They have money invested with us. They have a little over $1 million invested with us, but it's not their endowment. Yeah.
Well, their overall endowment, last time I talked to them, it was like 22 million. So it's a big
Yeah.
amount.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the largest out there for the churches. I mean, they're the largest church.
That's not included in the 33 million that you.
No. The diocese invests with us. So the diocese is probably our largest single investor. And then the foundation, our endowment is invested in those funds as well. I mean, like they say, if you're not gonna eat your own cooking, why should you have someone else do it? So, yeah. All right, any other questions, comments?
Check my logic if you want. So
Okay.
the 10% is before inflation. So if you take 3% inflation, pretty much the number most people would use, there is a net gain of 10 minus 3 is 7%. And the 7% is something that we can mention to our parishioners here has been the recent history that the diocese is accomplishing.
It's the foundation, first of all, we're separate
The
than
diocese.
the diocese.
Foundation.
Yeah. Now that would be if you're 100% in the equity fund. Now, if you're, say, out of the $33 million we have, 65% is in the equity fund and 35% is in our bond fund.
All right. And the bond fund is more like 3%, 4%.
Bond returns have not been very good lately. In fact, 3 years ago, I think, when the feds raised rates like 5 times a year, it was, the bond market had its, I think, worst year ever. Bonds have risk in them, bonds go down, and the bond market went down like 14% that year, which is almost unheard of, but rates just went up so fast. But yeah, the 10% would be strictly the equity, if you had 100%.
I see it in the finance committee, there's another 4,000 or 3 years put in there. I don't know what the period of entries are, but we certainly get evidence of that yield.
Yeah.
Well, if you know it's 65%.
Well, no, I'm saying what actually has come, if there's 100 there and the next month it's 104 or 3, whatever.
Yeah, sure, but,
That's the way to look at it, look at the real number.
everything's down. But what I'm saying is, from a net viewpoint, it's less than 7% because of the equity portion of that is
Right.
only 2/3 or
Right.
thereabouts.
I think you're right.
Right.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
10% in this statement.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Well,
So when I ask about a hard number over 10 years, what is the annualized return on our total endowment? It's
That,
not 10%.
it's not because you're allocated between equity
So
and bonds.
what might it be?
Well, one quick dirty way or one rough way, which will be which will be pretty close, is if you're, say, 65% in the equity fund, and that's, right, so that would be 6.5%, and then you can take the other third,
Minus 14 in the bond
this is
fund.
before
Yeah.
inflation.
yeah, and then put the two together, and so kind of do a percentage allocation of the two to come up with a number.
What's the number?
Right now, I'm not sure for Good Shepherd specifically, but if you're 10% over the last 10, 12 years-ish, that would be a 6.5% piece. And then if you're
And then
3%, and that's where a third of your endowment is, then that gives you 1. So you push the two together and
So
you're
we're really
roughly,
at, you're saying about
7-ish.
7% annualized.
right, when
That's
you're,
a big difference between that and 10.
right, yeah. Yep, and it all depends, I mean, there are churches out there who do have 100% in the equity fund, and there are churches out there who have 100% in the bond fund. So, but again, in total, in all the funds, 65-35 is that total out there.
Applications say that.
I mean, the whole reason we're trying to build this fund up is so that eventually it'll get up in the range of $1 million, and then you can pull 4% a year. If you pull $40,000, you can hire an assistant, or you can,
I
you have an emergency.
understand that, I'm just looking for, what is the money we have?
I think it's an easy question, because there's a real number.
There's a
There's
real
a real
number.
dollars we get every month or quarter, and that's what I would bank on, not.
Yeah.
Is there any fees in there to it? I don't know.
From there, there, I make my decision about what am I giving to Good Shepherd? Is it worth?
Well,
Are they getting a reasonable return on
this
it?
discussion brought up another question I have. Because it sounds like what Scott's saying, you got 3 funds and we could set the allocation. I don't know what the endowment group has set the allocation at.
I think Mark's point, though, is valid. With our small endowment, we
I
have to
don't-
be conservative.
I'm on that committee now.
And you don't know, you don't either, okay, it's good. So that's good, we got a good question to answer.
All right,
For 4 years.
Pardon?
I said, I don't know, I've been on the committee for 4 years.
Well, we should know that.
Well-
So somebody set that allocation
Yeah.
at some point.
And it was a modest
And
start, so. it
I
probably
would
was-
suggest
Turn it
that
up.
this would be a good time for the legacy committee and for the finance committee
Yeah,
to look at what that allocation is and make a decision as to whether it's appropriate.
yeah. I didn't know we could turn it on, frankly, so this is good.
yeah, and you can give me a call and I'll tell you what, so there's a couple things. One, you can see where you are now, what your allocation is, and I'll tell you what you have on file with us. When Good Shepherd set up an account, they told us to put, say, 65% in the equity fund and 35% in the bond. So I'll tell you the paperwork or of the original designation that you have in there. And that is absolutely something you can review or should review annually and take a look. Okay, where are we right now? First of all, do we want to rebalance? Has the stock market done great? And over the long term, all the studies that are out there are regular rebalancing lead to a good, solid, consistent, stable, more stable rate of return. And so rebalancing, say annually, is what we'll see churches do a lot. So you'll take a look and say, hopefully, hey, we're 75% in the equity now, so let's go ahead and rebalance, right? The whole thing is buy low, sell high. So you're 75, you're a little higher than your 65. So sell 10% of the equity, reinvest it in the bond fund so that you get back to your target 65, 35. So you'll sell because the equity fund has gone up, so you'll sell high, and the bond fund hasn't kept up, and it won't over the long term. You'll get a little bit more into the bond fund and have consistency in your returns over the long term. But yeah, you can send in a request to Pandora or I that you would like to rebalance your account, or you'd like to change. You 65-35, maybe you want to go 70-30 or 60-40. You can send a form in to us as well, and we'll
We're
change
first
it.
gonna go back and ask the finance committee to tell us what.
Tell us what it is.
Where we are.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know
absolutely.
there was an hour we could turn, that'll be
Absolutely.
enlightening. So this has been beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
I need to excuse myself, I have a medical at 1 o'clock, so, thank you very much.
Scott, thank
Oh,
you.
yeah,
Good.
yes,
Thanks,
yes.
Mike.
You're welcome, please, and give us a call with any other questions. That would be
There
great.
will be,
What's that?
there will be more questions,
Good, good, good.
but that's a good sign.
Yes. All right, yes, thank you all.
Thank you.
Yes, have a good afternoon, everyone.